Hey, Jason Spangler, the Santee Swapper. Wanted to do a live unboxing of 4 different collections that I've gotten in recently, but then also take this opportunity to unbox a few things from my own collection, kind of home run items that I have been holding on to, waiting to show everyone. And I thought, well, it's a Friday, it's a good day to kind of do a video and put this out there. I'm also kind of experimenting with a new service called StreamYard. I don't have an affiliate link for them, but I signed up for a trial plan, and this is literally the last day of my free trial. So I thought, oh, I better try this out and see if this is worth getting a subscription for. So I am going to be very clumsy with some of the tools in here, but I think it will allow me to maybe do a little bit more with the streaming. So, for example, I will try a banner now and see if this starts to work. So one thing that I can do in this with this service is flash up comments that people leave. So I know there might be a few people that are watching this video live. Most of you will watch it as a replay. If you have a question or a comment about any of these things, I may be able to go in and intercept that and respond back to you. No promises, however, because I don't have a producer. It's a one-man show, and so that's all I can do. You might notice in the background, if any of you have watched my other videos that I've done recently from here in my main office, this is my warehouse in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I run my scouting memorabilia business from. And I have recently, like as of this morning, just cleaned up all of the stuff that was behind me here, so I would have a little bit better of a background. So what you're seeing there, I've got a couple of prints up there, and also have a couple of flags that I've chosen to hang up just kind of for temporary fun. One of them is a super cool Sea Scout a ship flag from New York that I got in a recent collection. And then another one is just a generic BSA flag, also vintage, that I got a long time ago. Then I have to have my parakeets, right? Since I'm the Santee Swapper. So let me show you what I've got for you. I've got a couple of killer flaps. I think that these qualify as killer flaps that I want to show you. I'm actually going to unbox this little guy right here, which has my last Council shoulder patch need in it. And then I have 4 boxes set over here that I want to show you guys as well. So what I want to do then, let me switch here and tell you that as far as the unboxing goes, I have a lot of unboxings. I think I'm up to like 50 now on my YouTube channel. And if you go to my website, scoutpatchcollectors.com, you can find all of those unboxings. Essentially what I do is I buy scouting memorabilia collections from people and kind of rehome them. I have a collection myself. That's kind of why I want to show you these items that I'm putting in my personal collection. One of these boxes that I'm going to unbox has something that is definitely going in my personal collection, something I'm very happy to get. So anyways, I am a collector, but also a scouter. So in the summertime, I spend my weeks at Camp Barstow on the shores of Lake Murray in South Carolina. I grew up in South Carolina, even though I live today in Charlotte, North Carolina. So, all right, let's get right into this unboxing. So what I want to do, let's see, you got to save the best for last, right? I won't save the best for last, but let me start with this guy. So this box came to me from California, and this one was a little unusual. I kind of say that a lot with these unboxings because there's always sort of a story to how this goes. But this one came to me. The woman sent me messages back and forth. It wasn't super clear to me if these items were ones that like her son had gotten. I think that's what the story was. I think the son had gotten these items, and so she was trying to find a new home for them. I don't often get collections where it's from the 2000s, and so that's what we have here. But this is a collection that I do believe is going to have some Jamboree stuff kind of from the 2000s. So I will break into it and let us see what's there. I had in my notes written down World Jamboree, so I can see right here that there is a patch from the, this is one in 2003 in Thailand. They had a World Jamboree in Thailand, and looks like that's what some of these are. You can see the back patch from that event, which is a nice woven. And then some of the other patches in here look to be like other contingent patches. So for example, there's a troop patch from Orange County Council, California, going to the World Jamboree in 2007. So the Jamboree after the one that was held in Thailand. See what else we see in here. Yeah, I mean, this stuff is kind of interesting. Like this is the Mexican delegation patch from 2007. So, today there might be a very limited number of people interested in this, but there is quite a following for World Jamboree stuff. The next World Jamboree is happening in the summer of 2023 in Korea, and so every one of these jamborees is going to have contingent pieces. And so, sure enough, there's some of that going on here. This is the Venezuelan. Um, One for the 2011 Jamboree. So actually, there's quite a spread of jamborees represented here. If you kind of do the math, 2003, 2007, 2011. So about every 4 years, there's a World Jamboree. COVID notwithstanding, luckily the 2019 World Jamboree was held on time, and the 2023, 4 years later, is not going to be a problem. The Boy Scouts of America, as you probably know, are holding the Jamboree in the summer of 2023, and that will be a bit of a bump because of COVID. It was going to happen in 2021, and now it's happening in 2023. So in this bag, we have more Jamboree patches and also some shoulder patches here. Let me just sort of grab this fistful right here. So you can see here, whoa, they're dropping everywhere here. Texas, I've seen this one before. This is a scout troop that went to this Jamboree, but they weren't the Jamboree contingent troop. I've seen that one before. I believe the same thing happening here. This is not an official issue. I know this one is definitely not an official issue. I know where that one came from. Some guys I know in North Carolina had this one made, Pirates of the Carolinas. Folks, that's what we call a spoof patch in this hobby. So when people make up patches to trade them at Jamboree events or NOACs, but they're not official BSA, that's what that guy is. This one, of course, is official. Another thing you'll see about these spoof patches is oftentimes folks will make different border colors, and that just gives them another patch to trade. So these essentially, it's a cheap way to have two patches to trade. You just switch the border color. This is one I always thought was really colorful and I like. This is one from Georgia, from the Flint River Council. I think I have that one in my permanent collection because I always like that one. And then here's one from the World Jamboree. So this is the 20th World Jamboree, which I believe will be that one in Thailand. And so this is more of a contingent patch, says Northern California. Now, the funny thing about these guys, and during this time period, it may have been when they weren't using scout backs, all that good stuff where you could identify legit patches versus ones that were private issues. But a lot of time, things like this would have been private issue even if they were for an organized group, because there's not really a Boy Scout organizational structure for something called Northern California. And so sometimes what would happen is people who were going to a World Jamboree would make a patch to kind of represent their area, obviously something to trade, obviously something that looks nice and pretty. So this was held in Thailand, and so you can see the background here. It looks very, very Thai, doesn't it? With the temple and stuff. I guess that'd be a Buddhist temple. And so couldn't say whether that was a private issue or not. So just see if there's any more interesting ones in here. 2005 National Jamboree. A lot of these I've seen before. You also kind of see this with these Jamboree patches. Like this is one. This is a legit one from, what's the name of the council here? Hudson Valley Council, home of the chopper. And so what a lot of councils would begin to do is they would try to put something on their patch that would kind of make it a little more special, make it a little more tradable. And so here they went out, got permission from Harley Davidson to put, home of Harley Davidson or home of the chopper, obviously Harley Davidson there. So there's probably some connection within that council to the Harley Davidson folks. And then we got another bag here, nice bag. I'm kind of curious what these neckerchiefs are. More of these shoulder patches from Jamborees. So let's just see what these neckerchiefs are. I'm kind of curious about that. If any of them are, again, connected to the World Jamboree. This one's from a council camp, so Grand Teton Council. And then here is a wood badge neckerchief. So again, something of kind of a limited collectability maybe just because it's so local. But if you're from Grand Teton Council, that might be a really interesting one. And then here's Cedar Badge. I don't remember offhand what Cedar Badge is. It might be the name of a local, sort of like an NYLT type training that we would have today for youth. That would be my guess, just playing off of the idea of wood badge. And then look at that. This is kind of cool. So this is just a camporee patch from Grand Teton Council. but it's spoofing the design of the 1997 National Jamboree patch. So when I first saw this in the bag, I thought it was a 97 Jamboree, some maybe staff patch or one of the staff areas, but no, it's just a Jamboree patch. So yeah, there's all kinds of interesting stuff. So obviously this collection is from Grand Teton Council, and there's one more bag in here. Again, just kind of curious to see what these neckerchiefs are, if there's something maybe a little interesting, maybe from the National or World Jamboree in here. So go through these and see. But then you also find just really random stuff here. So this is from, I think this is also from 2011 Jamboree. It says Mark, it's got some foreign writing on it, but it looks to me like the bottom there kind of reminds me of the World Jamboree font and text from that event. And then this is a Scouts from Honduras. So a Honduran, oh, here it is right here. You can see it on that side, right? And so this is their neckerchief. And this is pretty cool. This is one that looks like all the Scouts signed this from the troops. So this is, again, from that 2007 World Jamboree. And there's a lot of signatures on here. So this would have been something very personal to that Scout. Again, more neckerchiefs. This one from the Philippines. So quite a variety here. So this is really a nice collection. I'll close it out there with the official neckerchief still in the bag from Thailand. So this is very typical of collections that I get. You know, it's somebody's scouting experience. In this case, for me, the added bonus was that this person did a lot of patch trading, which I love patch trading. I am going to go to the National or their conference coming up this summer and hopefully do some patch trading there. And so that's what I would do if I was at a national event. So I told you that I would be doing 4 unboxings. So that was pretty good, actually, for the first one. I'm pretty happy with that. Yes, someone here I'll show you said, nice flag. That is a nice Sea Scout flag. I actually have done, or the collection that Sea Scout flag came in, I did an unboxing video for it. I knew that Sea Scout flag was in there. So when you get to watch that unboxing video, you'll see me teasing the fact that there's something really good in here I want to show you guys. However, that unboxing video has not been released yet. I have a video editor that helps me with this. And so he has kind of got a little bit of a backlog of videos that he's working on for me. So I'm cheating a little bit. I'm showing you something that actually hasn't appeared on an unboxing. But it is, I believe, late 1930s. The guy who got it was definitely a Sea Scout in New York in the late 30s, probably into the 40s. And somehow he ended up with the ship flag. I don't know how. And as you can see, the name of this is the Sea Scout ship Dixie ship, which I think is so funny because they're obviously in New York. All right. That was a pretty good one. Let me pick this one next. This does not happen very often. This was mailed to me, and all I had to do was pay for the price of postage, which I think cost me $11. This was a guy who I believe was going out of the country. His address was from the DC area, and he was going out of the country, and so he was really downsizing. And, you know, there's also a thing going on among a certain group within our culture that are sort of kind of doing this minimalist thing where they really don't want to hold on to a lot of stuff. They sort of just keep the things that are important to them. So I think what this guy was doing was maybe he had, you know, taken pictures of these items and he was just kind of wanting to get them out into the world. So here's kind of what's in there. It's not very much. He said here, Jason, thanks for getting this stuff back into scouting, Pat. So cool story there. We'll see what he's got. I think this guy was an Eagle Scout. Looks like he was an Eagle Scout neckerchief here. So you can tell this is a very modern looking merit badge sash. There's that water or the snow sports merit badge, athletics, got his old Eagle ones here. Railroading, that's one that not many guys earn, but see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 24 merit badges. So definitely would have been enough to earn Eagle. And then he's got his Eagle Scout neckerchief here. Nice heavy duty cotton ordeal sash. I get a lot of those. And then a little handful of patches, which again is cool stuff. So you never quite know. Here, like Chattahoochee Council and Cape Fear Council, Longhorn Council, again, Chattahoochee again. I'm not sure I knew Western Alaska where he did his scouting. Like that's kind of an interesting one from Midnight Sun Council in Alaska. But eventually he ends up in the DC area, and that's where I connect with him. Again, things like his tan patrol patches. So this is obviously from the 2000s. This kind of matches everything that he told me, and so these are patches that I can do well with. I can trade these modern looking patches like this. I can definitely trade. But then look at, like, this is a little bit more of a clue. Like when you start to see a pattern of a lot of the same patches. So here's 4 patches from Hiawatha Seaway Council, this Brotherhood Camporee. I'll have to go and research why there's 4 different border colors from that camporee. But anyways, some good stuff there. And then something like this, Connecticut Yankee Council, obviously in Connecticut, 2004, there's some kind of a trip to Poland and Scotland. So I've got some reference books where I can look these things up and try to figure out what's going on here. But for me, this is a nice little collection to pick up, and I can definitely trade some of these items and make them available. A lot of times these tan patches I'll actually make available if they're still in mint condition to my scout troop. And if it's something that can still be issued out to scouts today, if it's the exact same design that they use, then I allow, we have a person on our committee that kind of goes to the scout shop. She'll come here first and kind of pick through my warehouse and get merit badges and things like that, rank patches for the troop, and just gets me super cheap. So that works out. All right. Promise you 4 unboxings, got a couple more, but let me pause for a second and I want to show you this one. So I mentioned that in this video there would be some home runs for my own collection. And so if any of you have been following me, you might know that in the last year I've really tried to focus on finishing up some of my collections. And one of those was a collection of council shoulder patches. We've already seen in both of the collections that I just unboxed plenty of shoulder patches, those elongated, curved on the top, flat on the bottom patches. So when you go to pursue a council shoulder patch collection, you have a lot of different choices. The way to start off that would be to say, hey, I want to get CSP, that's the abbreviation, for every council that is active. That would be the easiest way to start it. You could do it that way. I'm sure there's less than 300 councils today that are in existence, and sadly maybe will be even fewer a year from now as the BSA comes out of bankruptcy and COVID. But if another way to do a council shoulder patch collection, the way that I decided to do it was to pursue a collection of every council that ever issued a CSP. And so CSPs really debut in the early 1970s. That's when they sort of become the official thing that the BSA wears. And so if you were to tackle that collection, then you're up over 500 different patches you would have to collect. And the trick of the CSP collection is that some councils issued patches prior to 1973, 72, 73, whatever the year is, that basically qualify as a council shoulder patch. Now, the one that's in this little package is one of those. This, I believe, came out in 1957. And so far as I'm concerned, it's definitely one of the top 5 most difficult to get for a council shoulder patch collection. In my case, because I have been really hotly pursuing this collection recently and trying to reach out to people and get the ones on my needs list, it turns out this is the last need that I have for my collection. I always have to say, unless there's a new council that is born here in the last 6 months or soon to be born, I probably don't have that one. But of the sort of classic list of council shoulder patches, this will be my final need. And what was really cool about this is that I actually did a video. You could go again to my website. Hey, I have this little banner I can put back up. You go to my website and you can find this video where I was talking about the Bronx Valley CSP that I needed. I published that video and I promoted it on Facebook on the Scout Patch Collectors. And literally in the same day that I did that, a friend of mine reached out to somebody else that he knew, and all of a sudden I had that patch. So Hey, I'm on a video right now. I'm not the guys next door. They're not here today. So, nope, they're not here today. This is what happens when you have live videos. All right. I should have had like a drum roll or something, but instead I had some random delivery guy showing up for the neighbors next door. It's all good. All right. So this is the biggie. As I was telling the story there, I put out a call and said that this was my last need that I was looking for. And sure enough, I had someone come back and say, boom, I've got it. They quoted me a price. I swallowed deeply and I decided to go ahead and get this because this was the last one I needed. So from what I understand, 1957, very few of these were made. Less than, I think like 200 or 300 of these were made. I think in the CSI guide, it actually says how many were made. And what happened here is that because this looks like a CSP, I mean, it doesn't say Jamboree, it doesn't say anything else. It's the shape of a CSP. It looks like a duck. It's, quacks like a duck. It has been considered a council shoulder patch. It obviously was issued for probably 57 Jamboree, but again, because it doesn't say Jamboree, it's always been considered a shoulder patch. So this is a super tough one to get. And now it is going into this little holder, which will make it my final need. And so my note here says that this council existed from 1923 to 1958. So that's kind of what helps make this a rare patch, is that it's not only that it has that going for it, but also that this council merges and goes away in 1958. So obviously they never made a modern CSP. But if you're going back and you're trying to get a CSP from every council that ever issued one, you go back far enough, and here you have this one from 1957 that looks like a CSP, and got to have it. So now I have it. So I'm excited about that. I have all my CSPs over here off camera. I'm going to try to put them into a big giant set of frames that I've got with labels, sort of like this label right here, and make it where I can display it. I don't have that together yet. It's over 500 patches, as I mentioned, so that's going to take a little while. All right, let me show you this next one. This is kind of a cool collection as well. I bought this one from a guy. This belonged to his father, who went to the 1950 National Scout Jamboree. And so it's a very small collection. There's really not too much in here. But one of the nice things was that this gentleman sent me an email, and in that he shared with me his dad's story. So sometimes this happens where I'm talking to a relative and it's not, obviously the person's passed away, but part of what I'm doing is kind of, taking these items in and kind of recycling them, getting them back into scouting. And so his dad had actually written kind of a long, his scouting story to leave with his son. And so I really feel like it's appropriate, if I'm going to open up this guy's package. This came from Westchester, Pennsylvania, by the way, that I should read just a little bit. I won't read the whole thing, but I do think there's an interesting story here that some of you will appreciate if you're a scout. So bear with me as I read this. The spring of 1950 was a very special time. The troop voted me and one of the two scouts to attend the Jamboree at Valley Forge, then a Pennsylvania state park. Mom and Pop were excited, even though there were some expenses involved. I had to buy 2 sets of Explorer uniforms and a surplus Marine jungle pack. We also had to make a shelter, half of a pup tent, to specifications after boiling fabric and alum to waterproof it. There was the patrol flag, which Mom volunteered to make. That was tough because of the intricate pattern. She made a flag to be proud of. For cooking, each scout had to make a charcoal stove. Consisted of a 46-ounce juice can with coat hanger wires to support the coals, a top grill, and a bale-type handle to swing in it to fan the coals. For most of us, the charcoal was a totally new experience. We'd only cooked on wood. So again, just kind of getting into the whole story, what it was like to go to the 50 Jamboree, which was the second National Jamboree ever held. The Jamboree Patrol was made up entirely of scouts in West Philadelphia. We had several meetings to get organized for the big event. Finally, in late June, we boarded buses for the trip to Valley Forge. The encampment was scheduled to include the 4th of July. We were camped near the Memorial Arch. Then the consequences of the uniform came home to roost. Uh-oh, I've already read this, so I know what's going to happen. Only shorts were allowed to be worn. I hadn't worn short pants since the first grade. The back of my knees got so sunburned, I couldn't walk for the entire first week, and I missed most of the activities. All that work for a big disappointment. But that was offset later in the summer when the troop went to Treasure Island, the Philadelphia Council's camp on the island in the Delaware River. I couldn't go. We were still recovering from the expenses for the Jamboree troop, but the troop voted me in for the Order of the Arrow, Scouting Service Lodge. 2 honors in 1 year. Wow. So you can imagine then, if you know much about that area, you can probably guess some of the things that are going to be in here. So let's open up this small collection and kind of go through it. So he was inducted in the summer of 1950 into Lodge number 1, Unami Lodge 1, which is there in Philadelphia. And so just very cool that, as you might know the story, the Order of the Arrow, Scouting's National Brotherhood Society, was founded at Treasure Island Camp, where this guy was inducted into the OA in the summer of 1950. And, you can go back and read Ian Goodman and Carol Edson, the whole story. So it's just kind of cool that I can trace it back. This neckerchief from Unami came from that guy who got it at Treasure Island in 1950. Likewise, his felt sash, his felt ordeal sash, which is actually in really good shape, which kind of tells me he didn't wear it very often after that, because a lot of these get soiled and kind of yellowed and sometimes get moth holes in them because they are felt. But this one is really, really nice. But again, just kind of cool to know that this one's from Treasure Island. That's where that one was handed out. Here's his 1950 Jamboree neckerchief. So I can show you guys that. Again, for him, not necessarily a great memory with getting his legs burned up, but yeah, sorry about that. Not much else in here. Literally 2 little garter tabs. No garters survived. There is a little tiny ring. So there's a I guess I can pull this out. He has a ring from the 1950 Jamboree, which is just a little souvenir item. I mean, I'll try to hold it up close to the camera. I don't know that it'll zoom in. Yeah, probably won't focus. It doesn't like that kind of zoom. But that's kind of a cool little piece. And then what's the other piece here? Oh, yeah, there's a slide. So he has a neckerchief slide. And that's a classic design with the Statue of Liberty. So really, really small collection. But again, I had the story there. I really enjoy when people kind of share the stories of these collections with me. And so I wanted to share that with you guys. So I have kept one more box to share with you. And this one's a doozy. This one's a doozy. I got a phone call from a guy in Florida, and he wanted to sell me his Scouting memorabilia. And I don't remember the circumstances, if he had a reason why this was the time and he wanted to get rid of it. Some people are moving, some people are downsizing. I hear different stories from folks. But this guy was ready to sell his stuff, and it turns out that he also had his father's stuff as well. So he was getting up there in age. His dad had been a scout in the mid-30s. And so I ended up getting into a little bit of a bidding war with somebody else. I won't tell you who that was, but I really wanted this collection. So I guess you can say I won the bidding war, and I got this collection. So let me show it to you, and I'll talk about why this one was one I really pursued. So this collection is not terribly big. It fits into a shoebox, but in here he had everything really well labeled. In here we have the stuff from his dad and his stuff as well. I'll set that to the side. I've actually been holding on to this for quite a while. So, all right, so his dad, whose name was William, got his eagle in Indianapolis, Indiana on the 19th of August in 1935. So that is a long time ago. So you can see this bag is labeled Dad. And in here, we have a couple of cool things. So we have This flag, which let's just check it out. It's really big, actually. Whoa. So a big, big patrol flag. Now, what is that? Probably like a raven or something. I'm not sure, but that is a really, really big patrol flag. I actually can soak this in some OxyClean and see if I can kind of bring that back to life. And then I actually see these in a lot of collections. These have been around forever. So here is a whistle. This is a police whistle, not a Boy Scout whistle, but on this plastic lanyard. And I've actually got that from a couple of other collections. Couple of little felt patches. I don't believe these to be Boy Scout patches because of the designs. Similarly, here's some little stars. I don't believe those to be Boy Scout, which is fine. Sometimes you'll get that. Here's a khaki and red Indianapolis. So this is a really, really early one. We know that the dad got Eagle in 35. So there is kind of different variations of these red and white strips. So these were the precursors to shoulder council patches, and they just had your town name on them. Little old belt buckle there. Got his bugler patch and patrol leader patch and troop patch. But there's more. There's more good stuff. Keep going. A couple of regular old, these are full square, so you probably recognize this design, but this is a full square neckerchief. So the style that they had back in the day was quite different. Again, here's that same little symbol we've seen set over top of a regular BSA. So if you know what this is, someone tell me what's going on there. But anyways, I'm not sure why, but somehow they must be affiliated with Scouts in some way. I'm going to show you the sash last because that's kind of the big hitter. So love getting these old Eagle Scout medals. So, this one is from 1935. I love having the card with it to put with the medal. It's in the coffin case. This particular medal is not that rare. Obviously, 1935 has been a while, but that style of medal, it's not one of the super early ones from the 20s or, whatever. But that is a really nice one. So now we'll get to the sash. So beautiful, beautiful sash. You can see here the old, his old eagle and the other patches. But this is what kind of really stands out for this collection. And some of you who understand merit badges and kind of know a little bit about it will now understand why I was so interested in pursuing this collection and why I kind of got into a little bit of a bidding war, because for merit badge collectors, there's several different types of merit badges, and they're all based upon the style of merit badges and how the BSA changed things. And so this style right here is exactly from that 1935 time period. So most of you might know that there was something called a square merit badge from literally 1911 up to about 1932 or so. The merit badges that were made by the BSA were square. And there are ones from the teens that are a certain variety that are very different looking, have different colors, and they're much bigger pieces of cloth. But then going into the 20s and the early 30s, they're all square merit badges. These, however, are not square merit badges. They are the next type of merit badges that we call wide tans, or sometimes are called type B. And so here's how that's defined. And again, this camera doesn't like to zoom too much, but if you look at these patches, you can see that there is about 1/4 of an inch distance between the green ring and the outer edge. So what happened was, in the days of square merit badges, poor moms, and I'm just going to use the word moms because I'm sure in 1930 that's probably who was sewing these badges on sashes. The poor moms would sometimes have these square merit badges that didn't really fit very well in a sash. Some of them would cut the excess material away and just leave the little green ring. But oftentimes they had to fold them and iron them to kind of make all the patches be the same size so they would look good on a sash. And so at some point, the BSA got wise to this and decided, let's go away from that and let's create a crimped merit badge where all of them are going to have a permanent crease to kind of give them the round shape that they need. And they would also fit better on a sash. So as we go through here, you can see music and bugling and leatherwork and personal health, painting, first aid, safety, civics, carpentry, masonry. This one is reading, cooking, athletics, pathfinding, metalwork, home repairs, bird study, civics, pioneering swimming. And then we go to the back. It's got a lot of merit badges: life-saving camping, plumbing, basketry, photography, bookbinding, insect study, marksmanship, Indian lore, dairying, first aid to animals, farm mechanics, wood turning. I believe this is farm, home, and it's planning. I always get those confused. Poultry keeping, cycling. I think that's gardening. I think that's the gardening with one piece of corn. Firemanship, citrus fruit culture. Oh, no, that's not citrus fruit. That is just fruit culture. There's a tomato on there. This is, God almighty, I'm getting stumped now. That is soil, it's not soil conservation, soil management. That's soil management. Leather work with an awl, another one of the farming ones. Animal husbandry, like mating up animals and making animal babies, and printing, okay? So here's the deal. I don't know what that is. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44. Every merit badge on here is a type B wide tan. There's 44 of them. Some of them are exceedingly rare, hard to get. All type B merit badges are hard to get because they were only issued for about 2 or 3 years, 1934, 35, 36, right in there. It's just kind of unfathomable to me that this entire merit badge is that style. Now, I say that, but as I look at this more closely, now that I have it in my hand, it's possible that this one right here is a type B, and this one is actually disguised as a square, and mom has folded it to make it look like the other ones. And the reason why I could say that is because of the coloration. So that is more of a brown color, and I think it shows up in the video. Okay, that's more of a brown color. Same deal here, versus this is kind of a khaki green. So, for example, right here, I think that wants to be a square merit badge, which would be, again, that fruit culture. Now, that one is the soil management. That is the type B. So, I only saw pictures of this, and this is the first time I've taken out of the box, as you guys just saw. So looks like there could be another one there. Look, the coloration. That could be dairying as a square disguised as one that's not. Now, I see the same thing with insect life or insect study. That could be a square insect study surrounded by these type Bs. So irregardless, just a really, really awesome sash. All of these are hard merit badges. And you get into ones that just were not very common. So like I've already pointed out, the fruit culture and the soil management, those would be ones that almost no kids earned. And so very, very tough to get today. They just didn't make many. Not many have survived. Some of the common merit badges like camping, first aid, whatever, probably not hard to find at all. But you get into some of these other titles and they're just very, very hard to find. So I collect all merit badges. I don't really focus on the ones from the teens. I'm more focused on just getting a type A square and a type B wide tan. When I looked at this collection originally about 6 months ago, 4 months ago, however long it was, there were 21 of the 40 some patches on this sash that I needed for my collection. 21 of them I need for my collection. Now, looking at it closer, I bet a couple of the ones that I needed are actually squares, which the mom may have cut them down, which would hurt the value quite a bit. But irregardless, this is a wonderful, wonderful sash. What I typically do, is I don't take patches off of sashes like this. Not when I have the metal and I have the card. And then if I go into here, I can show you guys there are membership cards and kind of when I have the whole story from the scout. I really, really hate to break it up and cut things off of sashes and all. I think I'm a collector, and so I do collect. I do have a checklist, right? But I think I can have an asterisk on the checklist and say, this is on that Indianapolis Eagle Scout sash, and count it as if I actually, have it in my book, so to speak. So that's super cool. Just for fun, I'll open up this. It's a little sad to say that the guy who I bought it from, that his stuff is not nearly as exciting. But it's kind of true. So he got his stuff later. So he is more of a 1950s scout, and so he has his sterling silver award. This is the one that has the flat back, and so this was actually made so that they could get their name engraved on it. But very few scouts actually did this. So this is one of the ones made by the company. I believe it's called Stange, Stange, and it's nice that it's in the coffin case. And then he also has his cards as well here, and then also his sash, which you can kind of see. This is a good juxtaposition to have these two together, is that in some ways this looks very similar. All of these patches are from 1946 to about the end of the 50s, and we call these narrow crimps, which if you look at them again closely, you might remember the other ones. There's quite a gap, like a quarter of an inch between the green ring and the outside border. And that's how you can identify those type Bs. Also because they have more of a brown color. These are much more of a military green color. I know we always use this word khaki in Boy Scout collecting. It's the most confusing thing ever. So some people will call this khaki, but it's really sort of an olive green. If you flip them over on the back, you can always see that they're I would say more green, and then the type B, when you flip them on the back, they look more brown to me, more coffee color, kind of a tan. So this guy obviously was an Eagle Scout as well. You see things on here like that looks like the same merit badge as Dad earned, which is kind of cool. But then things like rowing and public speaking, angling, he had kind of a different one. Citizenship in the home, that's a merit badge that the Boy Scouts eventually dropped. I've never actually gone back to look at the requirements for it, but my guess is it probably looks a little bit like family life, a merit badge that kind of come back out. So, whoosh, all right. There's a lot of stuff there, but we're not done because I have two more patches I want to show you that help get me closer to finishing my Order of the Arrow collection, and then I'll close this thing out. So I have a little prop here for you. This is my edition, the first edition, 1996 of the Blue Book. And because it's just one copy and it's not gigantic, I like using this a lot of times as a reference. I keep it on my desk for old Order of the Arrow patches. Eventually, there's going to be, I think, 5 editions of this book through the late 90s and into the 2000s. But this is my edition from 1996. And what I love about it is it has great historical information. So when I was talking about the CSPs, I mentioned that I have a collection of shoulder patches, and that I was very happy to get that Bronx Valley, which kind of finished off my collection. So on the other side of the house, I also have been collecting for a long time now, Order of the Arrow flaps. And Order of the Arrow flaps, that's the National Honor Society, the Boy Scouts of America, flap-shaped patches. We saw some in those collections that we already unboxed. It's another kind of a collection where you can either go really broad or you can go really deep. There's like different ways to collect Order of the Arrow. For me, because I'm kind of a serious mature collector, I decided my rule was I wanted to get one lodge flap from every lodge that had ever issued one. And so that is a very challenging collection. Similar to the Bronx Valley, how you have this oddball thing that came out in 1957. In collecting Order of the Arrow flaps, you have the similar thing where there might be a lodge that exists, and then one summer they put out a lodge flap. And then the next summer, their lodge disbands, gets merged, goes away, whatever, and they're gone. But if you want to go back and collect a lodge flap from every lodge that ever existed, you have to get that one flap from that lodge that issued it that one summer, and they only made however many of them, and it's very, very hard to find. And people have been looking for those flaps now for 40, 50 years, and so they're very well established in the hobby as very hard to get, very rare patches. So I was able to get 2 of my last needs here recently. I've already done the unboxing, I guess, privately, and put them in the little holders, but I thought I would share it with you because I think it's an interesting thing for those of you who might be interested in collecting Order of the Arrow flaps. So here's kind of a distinction to make. People will talk about a name and a number collection for Order of the Arrow. And when I was coming through, I started collecting about probably 30 years ago, give away my age here. I didn't really know what it meant to say name and number or name or number. I didn't really know what they meant by that. But here's kind of giving you a quick definition of it because it's important to understand why I had to pursue these two. So throughout the history of the Order of the Arrow, there always was, they assigned lodges numbers. So I already talked about Lodge 1, Unami, the very first lodge. The next lodge is Sanhican, which I think is from New Jersey. And it goes on up into the 500s. So they used to number lodges, okay? At some point, they started to reissue numbers. And an example of this would be, let's say, two small councils merge, and so their Order of the Arrow lodges merge. They might create a new name for the new lodge, but when it comes to a number, they sometimes would use the old number. So the number would get repeated. So for collectors, there's one way to do this in which you say, well, I'm going to collect lodge numbers, and that means that if there's a newer lodge that issued this from the same number, then I can just check the box, I'm good. I don't have to get, in some cases, there's multiple times the lodge merged or changed its name. I don't have to go back and get all of those. And so that is an easier way to do it. You could go and say, I have a number collection. Well, a name collection is just going further down the rabbit hole. And that's what I decided to do because I felt like it was just more complete. So to have a name collection, what you need to do is you need to have all the lodges that ever existed that issued a patch. Now, for me, I made a rule for myself, and some of you will fault me for it, and that's perfectly fine. I have always been an Order of the Arrow flap collector. I was a lodge chief, I was a section chief, I collected lodge flaps. So for me, my rule was I only wanted to collect flaps. So if there was a lodge that only issued a neckerchief slide, like there's one up in Virginia, well, that neckerchief slide that I know of, I think the last one I knew that sold for like $7 or $8 or $10,000. I don't have to get that one because I'm only collecting lodge flaps. There's other lodges that maybe only issued a neckerchief or something like that, or an odd shaped patch. Strike those off the list. So that saves me about a dozen or 15 or 20 I don't have to get. But if you're just going to do lodge flaps, it's still not an easy game. There's still some really, really killer ones hard to get, and I've got two of them. So reason why I have my blue book here is I need to go back and actually check some of the history, because this one particular lodge out in California, it actually gets a little crazy. Lodges sometimes would actually change their name. Why would a lodge change its name? I know some examples where the lodge discovered that they were using an Indian name, and they were maybe, even though they were sort of, Englishizing, that's not a word, Anglo, and I'm not sure what the word would be. They were using, the Indian name, it might have been spelled wrong. So they first started off spelling it this way, and then somebody's like, oh, actually it's spelled differently, and they would change the name. So a name number collector would say, well, I need both spellings. And in this case, the one I'm going to tell you about is Lodge 304. This little guy right here. Dun, dun, dun. So this lodge was chartered in 1945, and they're 304. Now, this is where it's tough with these low-A flaps because they're Indian names. How do you pronounce it? So I'm going to say Cayucas. I'm from the South, y'all. That's just how I'm going to say Cayucas Lodge. Somebody else will pronounce it differently. It's Lodge 304. Now, on this patch, it doesn't say anywhere on this patch that it's Lodge 304. A lot of times you'll have that on a patch. This one doesn't say that, but it does say it's from the Santa Lucia or St. Lucia Area Council. So in 1945, this patch with the bear is issued by this lodge. And so this lodge actually changes its name in sometime after 1955. Again, reading from the blue book that I have here. So here you go. Lodge 304, even though the name is not on here, its totem is a bear, and it is issued this flap before 1955. Then it becomes Lodge 304 Miwok, M-I-W-O-K, and then its totem is a totem pole, okay? So the bear is Lodge 304 Koyokas, pre-1955, even though they issued a flap. The next lodge, which also is very hard to get, is Miwok with a totem pole, also same council. And then eventually this lodge is going to merge in 1962 altogether and becomes a whole nother lodge. So this is the first version of Lodge 304. And there are three different lodges named 304. 304 Cayucas, 304 Miwok, and then in 1962 Miwok merges and it becomes 304 Chumash, which I believe still exists today. All right, that's that one. Last one, guys, giving you the whole long story. This one is what essentially would be called a name change, I guess. So this one is the second to the last one that I need for my collection. This lodge chartered in 1957 in Worcester, I can't say it like the folks up in the New England area would, Massachusetts. And the thing about it is, I know you can't see it here in this slide. This is a twill flap. And the trick of this is the spelling. So it's spelled, again, Indian names, Pachachog, I don't know, Pachachog. That's the spelling on the flap. That's how they chartered it. You go and look at the charters. However, somebody up there figured out that, well, the Indian tribe's real name isn't spelled that way. So by 1959, they had changed the spelling of the Indian tribe name, of the lodge name, and changed it to, instead of being ending with OAG, then they changed it to end with AUG. Again, I know we're splitting hairs, but if you're going to be a name number collector, that counts. And so this lodge here, this flap was pre-1959. Again, it's the only one issued by this lodge using that original name. And then by 1959, in their charter they submit to National, they have changed the spelling of their lodge name, and they issue a flap that has the new name spelling. So this one just becomes, it's almost like, if you're like a baseball card collector or something like that, like if you have like an error card, like those of us who were, collected baseball cards in the 80s, we knew about these error cards that, they were made, they weren't supposed to be made kind of thing. It's almost like, the lodge issued this until somebody realized that the name wasn't spelled right. And so they went back and corrected it. And so this becomes like the error card, except it's a hard to get flap from Massachusetts. So where does that leave me? That leaves me with one need to finish my Order of the Arrow flap collection. And I don't have it to show you because I don't have it, but I will flip over and tell you the story of the one I need. So I need, the last one I need, drum roll, is another one of these name changes. So I need Lodge 241 Tomahawk. Some of you will not be surprised to hear that because a lot of guys need that one. That's from Pikeville, Kentucky. And the trick there is that Tomahawk is sort of the Indian name. I'm sorry, that's the English name, okay? And then the lodge changes their name. They sort of use the Indian version of it. And it goes from Tomahawk, normal spelling like all of us would know, to Tomahawken, Tomahhaken, sometime after 1955. And so you make this flap with the name Tomahawk on it, and then somebody's like, oh, wait a minute, we need to this is Order of the Arrow, we have all this Indian heritage, let's use the Indian spelling. And so they changed the name of the lodge to make it sound more Indian. And so then the next flap that's issued has the new lodge name. So I don't have a Tomahawk. If anybody out there watching this video has one, I have laid myself bare. I'm not trying to hide the fact that I need one. I will pay the Pied Piper. I just need one. So anyways, thank you for posting. I saw a couple of, I'll throw a couple of comments up here. Again, I can't always keep these. Question from Paw Patrol News, is the Blue Book still made? So sadly, the Blue Book is not still made. The last one came out, I think in 2006 or something like that. About a 10-year run for the Blue Book. They made them every other year, or every 2 years. I don't know the exact history of how this went down, but the sort of like ownership of the Blue Book kind of went into a little bit of a black hole after that. There's been different efforts to try to bring it back. ISCA has tried to do that. Some other folks have tried to do that as well. There is not at this time a truly standard reference for collecting Order of the Arrow patches in our hobby. And that's really unfortunate. It's a real deficit for our hobby that we don't have an agreed to catalog system that we use. Hopefully at some point that will change. But as of now, what I can suggest to you is, because these Blue Books have a tremendous amount of information about the history of scouting the Order of the Arrow, You probably can find these on eBay. Go on Amazon. You can find them on there in the used books. Goodwill, they have their own site where they have stuff for sale. You can find these old books. You can get them really cheap, I think, and they would be a great reference. You just have to realize that it's kind of like each of these has a stopping point. So this one came out in 1996 at the NOAC, and so probably the last entries for this one are probably by the end of 1995 because the editors were rounding up and herding the cats. So it is kind of like a reference point that's sort of frozen in time, but there's just a lot of really good information here. And then some of the stuff from the newer lodges you could just kind of, catch up on. So thank you for that comment. I appreciate it. Thank you, Bill Mulrinnen. Yeah, it's very nice to get needs, especially when you've been doing this for a long time, as you know, to finally get a need and scratch it off the list, especially a really difficult one, is a big deal. And so, at heart, I'm still a collector. I do a lot of wheeling and dealing on the internet, but ultimately my goal is to build up my collection, and I have a lot of different things that I collect. So that's kind of a big deal for me. So, all right. Thanks very much for watching this video. Let me just put this little banner up here to remind you that if you're watching this on YouTube, I would love for you to like the video, leave a comment. I'll try to go back and check the comments later and respond to them. You can also subscribe to my channel. I've got about 500 and some people at this point who are subscribed to my channel. If you're watching this on another platform, again, all those likes and things just kind of works in the algorithm and helps people see the video. I'll try to continue to do some videos like this. Again, I'm testing out this service called StreamYard, trying to decide if I want to pay their subscription price. I'm already paying for Zoom, and I'm already paying for all these other things. So we're all paying subscriptions. You know how that is. But I am trying to test some different platforms so that I can make more professional videos and kind of increase the quality and the content. So trying that out. So thanks very much, everybody. Jason Spangler, the Santee Swapper.